Hey guys, this is John Shingini from East West Healing.
A little bit of an interruption there.
Yeah, we actually tried this first once already and it disconnected. We've had really bad reception for some reason in our office all day. I have no idea why. It's sunny, it's 80 plus degrees here. So if it disconnects again, then we'll probably just push this to next week. So just FYI if you're watching this. Reception's been just really spotty. So today is episode number 21 of Conscious Nutrition. We'll be talking about fasting and your metabolism. We are here every single Thursday at 2:30 p.m. Pacific Coast time. Before we get started, let's get into some logistical things. We have a 7-part audio series. It's called the Restoration Thyroid. It's complimentary, and it's a great chance to, number one, kind of get introduced to our work. Number two, have a foundation to understand kind of how we come about our kind of train of thought and philosophy. And number three, a great way to get started in regulating your adrenal and thyroid health with food. So I'm going to put that link in the comments section here below, and you can click on that link below, whether you're watching now on the playback, and subscribe. Secondly, we offer a free 15-minute consult. It's complimentary. And this is, I think it's important because a lot of people have questions. And it's a great chance for us to, no obligation, answer some of your questions, maybe help you, kind of push you along your path, or talk to you a little bit more in depth on what we have to offer and what we can do to kind of help you and work through that process. So I'm going to put the link to the free 15-minute consult in the comment section below. Lastly, of course, please like the video. Please share the video. Let people know that we do this every single week. Obviously, anyone can benefit from this stuff. And it's a great chance to, hear our approach, but actually ask questions, whether you're live or on the playback. So don't be afraid, if you listen to this, to ask questions in the comment section, because we will definitely answer them. Did you have anything to add before we get started?
Nope, I think you hit them all.
Okay.
You got them all in there. Perfect.
So the reason we want to talk about fasting is because it's such a big topic. Big in the sense of, I don't really even think it's big in the sense of what's going on, because it's really simple, the negative aspects of it. I think it's more just everyone's doing it because I think everyone's looking for the next best thing.
It's another trend.
It's another trend.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of people out there that send me infographics and say, look, it's good for you, or I did it and it worked, or, well, this person says it's the best thing in the world. So here's some of the differences. Most people are coming from a place of what's in, what's cool, and what is the best thing to do to lose weight,
maintain muscle, improve performance, feel better, have energy.
No, I'm coming at it from the other way right now.
What way?
Yeah. So most people are coming at it from like what's in, what's cool. They're coming at it from a dysfunctional standpoint. How do we lose weight? We need to chase our symptoms, and not really looking at it from a health point of view. Then you have the other group, or the other camp, which is us, that look at, let's say, I don't want to say fasting, but everything we do from a place of science, biochemistry, function, how the body works, health, performance, all the things Jeannie just said, right? And those are two different major different things. No, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that people that are looking towards fasting, whether it be in
right,
the
okay,
long
I
term,
get what
are
you're saying.
also
Yeah,
trying to achieve those same goals in a way that is going to lead toward dysfunction in the long term.
100%. That's a good point.
Yes.
So really what people are doing is we're trying to create long-term health. Most people are sacrificing short-term gain for they're sacrificing long-term health for short-term gain, which is weight loss. And I feel great. Of course, you're in a hyperadrenaline state. Who wouldn't feel good? So think about that when you read something, you study something, because we're coming at it from a physiological standpoint. We're coming at it from how the body works, a functional standpoint, and we're trying to create health. Everyone else is coming at it from the other way, right? And it's a contextual difference.
I think what Greg is saying is really true, because even if you look at a lot of the research out there, some of the main reasons they're highlighting for people to do this is because it's easier. It's less preparation. You don't have to focus so much on when to eat. You don't have to stop your busy day to eat. You know what I mean? It's adapting into just it's following the adaptation or the dysfunction, I guess you could say.
Right,
really
and
following
that's
the dysfunction.
That's another good point. Now let's just say there's a lot of type of fasting nowadays, right? You know, there's just it's crazy. There's so many types. I would say the most common one I'm hearing nowadays is, okay, I'm gonna go like 14, 16 hours from nighttime till morning and not eat. So I have this small window during the day, whether it's 6 hours to 8 hours, to get all my calories, right? That doesn't matter. Because if you think about it, most people that aren't even fasting are already fasting.
Well, thank you, Courtney Marie. Yes, every day. From
right?
About 10 o'clock at night to about 8 a.m. in the morning.
Well, we don't eat at 10 o'clock, but yeah, we fast from after dinner to the second we wake up. And for us, it's very important to wake up and eat. But no, we never really... I've tried fasting before, to be honest. I've tried it, and it doesn't work for me, of course. And I fast between my meals, like maybe 2 to 3 to 4 hours, depending on my meals. But, you know, that's just silly talk. But I think if you talk about the average human, most people are not eating enough food throughout the day. Their food frequency is very poor. They're going 4, 5, 6 hours between meals. And then they have their dinner and they don't want to eat any more food because they've read it's super bad to eat close to bed. So they don't eat until maybe the next morning. I mean, we talk to people sometimes, friends, coworkers, colleagues, and I'll be even working out with people, let's say 10, 11, 12 in the morning, and they're like, oh, I'm starving. And I'm like, yeah, I can't wait to have my next meal. I've had like 3 already. They're like, oh, I haven't even had 1. Like, by noon, I'm already 3 deep, you know, and I love it. And it's not like I'm eating these grandiose meals for a king. I'm eating food that I like to fuel my system. So I think most people are fasting already. So from a common sense standpoint, and most people are struggling with low testosterone, you know, adrenal fatigue, you know, blood sugar handling issues, hyperinsulinemia, they're stressed, whatever, the sleep issues, the list goes on and on and on, right? So then we're just going to fast to perpetuate the state of our being that we're already in. It just doesn't make any sense to me, you know, because it works. So essentially what we're going to do is, where we're at, we're going to starve our body even more so it eats itself so we lose weight, creating the illusion of healthy weight loss. We feel good because we're in a hyperadrenalin and cortisol state, which is a stress state, and initially you do feel good.
And hear that, because that's typically what people are experiencing, and a lot of the suggestions, or where it's kind of cautionary for most people, is people with hypoglycemia, low adrenal function or adrenal dysfunction, obviously hypothyroidism, pregnant women. But again, most people are in that state. So I think that that's really, really, really important to understand, is that most people are in that state. So it's not recommended because, again, you are already in a severe energy deficit.
Right.
Yeah. And you had said something else I was going to say, but I lost my thought. Go ahead.
That's okay. So I think people just perpetuating it. And the weight loss that you're getting is not only fat weight loss, but initially that weight loss that you're getting is actually water weight. Secondly, they're getting a lot of course, fat loss, but it's not healthy. You're actually eating white fat without producing brown fat, right? So now we're creating a huge problem because brown fat is more metabolic, and that's what we're trying to do. That's what people try to do with cold therapy, right? And that's what we're trying to do with our approach. That's what people do with breathing. Produce more brown fat, become more metabolic, be in an energy burning state so you can eat your white fat. That's healthy. But if you're just eating white fat, which is catabolic, you flood the system with that. Most of it's, unsaturated fats. We affect our thyroid, we affect cellular energy production. And a lot of these times, we end up working with these people, and the most common thing we see is fatigue. We see, I have adrenal fatigue. What's up, Steven?
Hi, Steven.
We see low testosterone, right? Because stress hormones always are inverse to testosterone, right? And you have all these people going in testosterone. You have all these people going adrenal fatigue protocols. And the biggest thing nowadays is what? Autoimmunity. Well, I have this and I have that, right? It's getting worse and worse and worse. Why? Because people are sacrificing long-term health for short-term gain. And anytime you induce the stress response in a constant manner, what do? You suppress the immune system, right? So over time, you get an autoimmunity. But initially, you're just eating yourself, right? You're robbing Peter to pay Paul. There you go, Greg Tabor. You're eating your own tissues to lose weight. And over time, of course, because now you're eating your bone, you're eating your muscle, you're losing fluids, you're eating your fat, your white fat. So now you lose some protection. Over time, you end up with all these crazy diseases and autoimmunity. So it's spiraling out of control. So from a common sense standpoint, it doesn't make any sense.
And again, just like any other approach or diet or fast or whatever, it's going to work for some people and not for other people. And I think the difference is, where are you on the spectrum of energy deficits? Where have you fallen on that spectrum? Somebody more extreme, which are more the people that we're working with, are going to sacrifice themselves even further. It's going to be a shit show, basically, excuse my French, for that body in particular. If you have energy reserves and you haven't completely exhausted all your energy reserves and you do something like this, you might gain some benefit from it with respect to weight loss, but in the long term, you're going to hit the wall, whether it's 1 year, 2 years,
Trust
3
me,
years,
I'm doing
wherever
this
that
18
threshold
years.
comes,
I've seen it over
you're
and
going
over
to do
and
it.
over
And even in the studies, they're talking about the body's primary source and use of energy is through carbohydrates. Yes, we do have the ability to use fat as energy, but just as Josh explained, what type of fat are we trying to mobilize for energy? Is it white fat or is it brown fat?
We should be mobilizing brown fat at rest for energy.
At rest for energy, which would now naturally
That's in a utopic
happen.
state.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So here's the thing. Julia said you aren't in an energy deficit because you are using your fat stores. Well,
that's the idea.
Right? And here's the thing. Julia's probably reading people that talk about fasting and the benefits of it. Mm-hmm. We're coming from, hey, you can't argue physiology. This is how the body works. Right. The body's primary source of fuel is glucose. So I was watching a movie the other day called The Magic Pill. Of course, it's about ketosis. The first half of the movie is incredible because they're talking about the cell. They're talking about all disease starts at the cell level. That is our approach. I mean, my mouth was watering. I was like, oh my God, this is an awesome movie. And then, boom, ketosis. But they say something in the movie that's so contradictory that, like, your body's primary source of energy is carbohydrates. So we're trying to trick the body into using fat for energy.
Right.
It's not efficient. There's so much just functional biochemistry on this. This is not efficient, right? That's why we have to eat more often, right? And the thing is this, when we eat fat for energy, number one, most of the time we're in a stress state. Right? You can't argue that. Number two, when we are at rest, meaning maybe when we're sleeping, we use some fat for energy. Not all fat for energy. Some fat. Why? Because we're not moving. But that fat is brown fat, or it should be brown fat. Most people don't have brown fat. Right. Babies have brown fat. Young kids have brown fat. That's why they're so metabolic. They can eat and run around and never gain weight. But over time, because of what we eat, all the unsaturated fats, watch that movie, they go into it. We're not the only ones talking about it.
There's a lot of research.
Vegetable oils, the nuts and seeds, the nuts and seed oils, all these things that are in our foods and that people are eating are affecting our cells, the cell structure, energy production, and the thyroid itself. So what do we get? We get a lower energy production. Now our cells start using fat for energy, and this is it's very inefficient, and it creates a huge problem. So what we're doing is we're inducing the stress state 24/7. But what happens? We start producing more white fat, right? And white fat is not metabolic, and it stores energy. This is why people are gaining weight. But when they start doing fasting and they lose weight, they're not replacing it with brown fat. So you're sacrificing long-term health for short-term gain. And yes, you are in an energy deficit. Your cells are not meant to use fat for energy from a primary source. That's just basic 101 biochemistry. You can look it up, any book, any website, Google it.
It is a survival mechanism.
It's a survival mechanism.
Can be used, but there is not the recovery necessary, or the recovery happening that we would tend to see or need to see for that to be efficient.
So here's the problem. Most people are already in an energy deficit. Most people are always... I just can't say that word today. Already in a sympathetic stress state. They're already in a hypometabolic state. So then we induce that with fasting. What happens? We suppress thyroid health. Why? Well, because of the hormones that we're releasing. Number two, we don't have the energy coming in for the thyroid to burn. Right? So in a sense, what we're doing with that is we're affecting how every single system in the body works, and we're inducing that sympathetic state throughout the body even more and more and more. Jean-Philippe asks, could you explain how to produce more brown fat? Well, you have to become more metabolic, right? And this is why a lot of people use code therapy, right? Because anytime you induce mitochondrial biogenesis, right? It's a big word. The replication of mitochondria. What happens is you produce more brown fat. You're more metabolic. You're producing more mitochondria. So what you don't know is what you're trying to do, Jean-Philippe. I know Jean-Philippe, and he does the same work that we do in Montreal. He's very talented. So if you're ever there, get in touch with him. He just speaks French and a little English too. But so what we're doing with our philosophy here is we're actually getting our body or our cells to not only produce energy, but replicate mitochondria, which makes us more metabolic. We're now, in a sense, closer to health. When you produce more mitochondria, you produce more energy, you produce more brown fat. Brown fat is energy burning. It burns energy. That's why when people get healthy, doing the work we do, their temperature goes up. They're producing heat. They're regulating their blood sugar. The good thing about this is brown fat eats white fat. It's that simple. White fat is not metabolic, right? It's stored. It doesn't burn energy. It doesn't produce energy. It's the fat that people get around their belly button, on their hips, their saddlebags, the places we don't want fat, right? It's storing. And it gets produced because of being in a hypometabolic state, not producing thyroid hormone, not having a lot of mitochondria, from maybe being estrogen dominant, eating a high diet and high in polyunsaturated fats, etc. Right? So
hand in hand.
Yeah. So when people are dieting or doing ketosis or fasting, they're using that fat for energy, but that's a problem because we're not replacing it with brown fat. So in a sense, we're making our body even less metabolic than we were going into it, and you weren't even that metabolic. So it's a huge problem, and it's a risk. Right?
Especially for the general population who, again, are finding themselves in that low energy deficit, whether they're conscious of it or not. Again, I think we have to be very careful with who. If you are going to do something like this, again, it needs to be done with extreme care. And obviously, we do not recommend it. But there are many of you who are going to go out there and do it anyway.
Yeah.
For whatever reasons, and that's okay.
I had a client recently that was working with me, and so she was working with me, and then I forget. I can't remember the whole story right now, so I don't want to mix it up. But anyway, she tried fasting and it didn't work, and she came back and she's like, "Oh my God, it just literally made things 10 times worse." Yeah. And here's the thing:
we have a lot of those people working.
I think a lot of people that can't tune into their body, that don't know how to stay present, that don't know how to resource themselves, that really don't know how to feel, will do it and say, "I feel great." But what if you really don't?
Well, what if you do, because adrenaline and cortisol feel really great?
And that's why initially most people do feel good fasting, right?
Exactly.
Because you're inducing the stress response even more.
Yes.
Now, really what's happening when you fast is essentially, and this is a problem because we're trying to do the opposite, you're decreasing your liver's ability to store glycogen. Right? This is a hallmark sign of being hypothyroid. So you're pushing your body into a hypothyroid state. Number two, you're decreasing your liver's ability to release glycogen, if there is any. Number 3, you're decreasing the conversion of thyroid hormone, and you're causing your blood sugars levels to rise because of the stress. And this is why a lot of people are hyperinsulinic right now. This is why a lot of you are like, oh my God, I can't eat carbs. I'm allergic to carbs. I gain weight when I eat carbs. I tank and I have fatigue when I have carbs. Carbs aren't the problem. You are. You're hyperinsulinic. And if you watch that movie, they talk about it. It's awesome up until halfway, and then it turns to shit, right? So here's what I'm going to say. If you don't believe me, for all the naysayers, based on what I said biochemistry-wise, take your body temperature and pulse the second you wake up in bed laying down.
Yes.
That is going to tell you what is going on at your cell level. Are you parasympathetic or sympathetic? Are you storing energy or not? Right? Are you producing white fat or brown fat? Most of you are going to have low body temperatures and low pulses. You are in a stress state, and the fasting you're doing is not working
hurting
for you.
Exactly. Question from Scott. 100% Scott. That's the whole purpose of the keto diet, was to work with epileptic patients.
And this is, we were watching the movie together, and I was just like, this is awesome. The first half. I want to state that over and over again because I do not approve of ketosis.
I was ready to jump out of my seat
because they like all disease begins at the cell level. I was like, what? This is awesome.
But the
I get
interesting thing, Josh, is it's not the first time we've read that. We've read that in so much research. It's
right,
just
but the
that
scene in the movie, I was like all excited. I get excited
it
about
is,
stuff like that.
We get excited about that because, again, we're in an industry where it isn't this for that. So what we're teaching is very difficult for people to swallow and wrap their heads around and really digest and absorb and work with, because it isn't the quick fix that you're looking for. It is a long term.
So here's the thing with fasting or even ketosis, to answer Scott's question. And if you even watch the movie, they bring it up. All the research is done on people with epilepsy. It was actually a diet. I wrote a huge report on this in college. I don't have it anymore, obviously, because we didn't have computers at the time. We had these hard disks that most of you don't even know what they were. So it was actually developed for epileptic patients because they found that epileptic patients, their body, they found that most people's brains use fat for energy, but their body uses sugar. But they found that epileptic patients really couldn't use sugar for energy. There was a dysfunction at the cell level, and they found that they could use not only fat, but ketones for energy. So that's why they induced that state, which decrease the seizures, right? Now, if you watch the movie, all the research is done on people with autism, right? That people with severe insulin resistance and diabetes and sleep apnea, and they're on the verge of death. What else was there?
I think the other one, there was 3 studies being done in that movie.
Just severely overweight, morbidly obese. What does that tell us? It's all done on dysfunction. What is dysfunction? Everyone's physiology is completely different in a dysfunctional state, right? And most people in a dysfunctional state are either hyperglycemic or hypoglycemic. They're hyperinsulinic, etc. So what we're looking at is, how do we adapt a diet for people in a dysfunctional state instead of looking at how the body works and give them something to get back to that state. So they look at it as, okay, they're dysfunctional. If it fixes this person, that means that we should eat this way all the time. That's not true, right? So we just don't agree with it because we know that from a functional standpoint, our cells use sugar for energy. Now, we're not saying that everyone should start eating tons and tons and tons of carbohydrates.
Absolutely
or
not.
pro-metabolic carbs. So we actually want people to go super, super slow, right? But here's the problem. The problem is because most people's diets contain high amounts of carbs or unrefined carbs and low amounts of protein and fat. That's the problem. It's not the carbs. It's the ratios, right? Because I know athletes that eat buttloads of unrefined carbs or refined carbs, whatever, but they also eat a lot of protein and fat and they're ripped, right? So it's the ratio that's the issue. So I think that what we're trying to do is, number one, replace those refined carbs with healthier carbs, and then balance the ratio to create balance within the system, of course, going very slow, and you get a lot of result. Why? Because we're using body temperature and pulse to see what's going on at the cell level, and are we regulating thyroid health, energy production, and are we regulating vagal tone? And that's the most important thing. Are we regulating the state of the being to promote long-term health? And that's exactly what we're doing. So that's why we're against fasting. I hope that answers your question.
About, body temperature and pulse.
Range for body temperature and pulse is
anywhere from 97. Well, in the morning time, you're going to be at the lower end of norm, which, you know, again, ranges 97.8 to 98.6. It's normal to come in at that lower end of norm in the morning because you are coming out of your longest period of fasting. And then we see a gradual increase again after breakfast.
That's the normal flow, but 97.8 to 98.6 is normal. And for temperature, you know, honestly, pulse, I would say that for us, the higher the better, but not above 85, right? Most people are like 40, 50, 60. We want to see people in the 70s. I'm really happy, right? Even 80.
And even if you do come in low, does it come up? Does it stay elevated throughout the day? Or are you seeing, you know, your temperature stay normal, your pulse drop? And these, again, are patterns we've been observing over many, many years. Right. But, again, as we've said many, many times, body temperature and pulse are not a marker for health. They're giving you information.
It shows us the amount of carbon dioxide we're producing and the storage in the blood. That's what we're really looking at, right, to get scientific. Yeah. So
if you guys want to know where you stand metabolically and whether or not intermittent fasting is smart for you, take your morning body temperature and pulse and see where you fall. Right. And then again, make a very, you know, do your research, get informed, understand what it is you're doing, and make whatever decision is best for you.
Right. So the bottom line is this: we believe that fasting there's no benefit to it. I know a lot of people say there is. We believe everyone needs food in a very personalized way. And how we go about it, we believe that everyone needs carbs, proteins, and fats. The amount is going to be different at the beginning stages of healing, through the middle, through the end, right? Yep. But even in the beginning, if someone has PCOS, if someone's hyperinsulinic, they still need carbs, right? It's the stress reaction a lot of the times that's creating that. So we need to regulate blood sugar, right? Maybe we use less carbs than we would than someone that's hypoglycemic, but they still need carbs, right? They still need it. So the main really issues with intermittent fasting is, of course, you're inducing the stress state, you're affecting thyroid health, you're creating a sluggishness in the liver.
You're compromising the long term, and basically.
You're basically creating a lot of organ and muscle wasting, bone wasting, and fat wasting. Mm-hmm. And this is all stress induced. That's the only way you waste them, right? From hormones like adrenalin and cortisol especially. So,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Well,
I was just going to say, this is a question that we get often from our clients because of different regions of the world, climates and whatnot, and someone's asking if, I'm assuming the question is whether or not body temperature and pulse should still be at those levels when we're in cold temperatures. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. That is a normal body temperature and pulse for the human body, and it is a lot more difficult in colder regions of the world or climates to maintain that, where, again, food choices are going to be imperative.
But this is why we're teaching our approach, because it's sustainable. Yeah. So as your stress levels shift, you like that little worm? And as the seasons change, your cycle changes, you have more stress, less stress, you're starting to work out again, the way you eat is going to shift. And what you'll see is summer to winter, right? It's colder, you need more energy, right? So you actually, in the winter times, people, their diet is going to shift a little bit because you need more energy to fight the cold. Just like a furnace, right?
Well, it's also why you see the seasonal changes in food, because you're going to need heavier rooted vegetables to maintain heat in the body. Where in the summer,
long-term energy.
Again, there's more fruits available. Again, a very different energy, a colder energy. It's something we can utilize more efficiently at that time. So food choices, again, it's not just about a lot of carbohydrates to maintain metabolic health. It's about finding the right balance, and it's also what are the sources coming in depending upon where you are physiologically. It sounds like a lot, but again, there is a begin, a middle, and an end,
right.
and then a maintenance, I guess you can say, because again, at that point, you know what it feels like in your body to fluctuate, so you go back and forth. And
Maria
adjust it accordingly.
just brought up a good point, and that's why what we do is so personalized. She was born in a warmer climate, and now she lives in Canada, so it's hard for her, right? So that's why this has to be so individualized, because how she eats is for her to maintain because of how she was brought up. Our body is designed to adapt, right? We've talked about this in many of our Facebook Lives. When we're in a stress state, we're compensating, we can't adapt. The more metabolic we are, we adapt, right? So our body is meant to adapt. And if we adapt to living in warm weather, right, we still need energy, but not as much. Why? We have the sun. The sun stimulates an enzyme in our cell called cytochrome oxidase that helps us produce energy, right? We don't get that in the winter. That's why people get seasonal affective disorder, right? We can combat that with food. To upregulate more energy production, increase that turnover of mitochondria to help us produce more carbon dioxide. So how we eat in the summer is going to be very different than in the winter. Calories, ratios, food choices, etc.
Same thing is true, and I'm just going to plug this in for women in their cycles.
Right.
You're going to shift dramatically from your follicular to ovulation to luteal in how you nourish your body.
Right.
So there's a lot of fluctuations that the human body goes through throughout the year, throughout the month, throughout the day. It could, and then again, tuning into that and becoming familiar with what that feels like for you, and again, observing it can provide you loads of information about how to nourish your body appropriately.
So we're going to wrap this up now. Just keep in mind, if you have any questions, go ahead and post them here. If not, on the playback, you can ask a question while I'm wrapping it up. Just remember, when you fast, number one, you're already fasting. Number two, if you decide to fast, then you're just going to be double fasting. Number three, the reason you're losing weight is because your body is eating itself, right? So essentially, you're inducing the death response. Right?
You're accelerating the aging process.
You're accelerating it. So you want to teach your body to thrive on energy bank accounts. It's that it literally comes down to that. So think about, okay, well, if I want to lose weight, maybe I actually get healthy to lose weight, right? Or if I'm losing weight, do I still have all these other issues? Do I still need all these other, medications or supplements? Am I really, is what I'm doing really working for me? And thirdly, if you literally believe nothing we're saying and you're like, you are a complete shithead, take your body temperature and pulse in bed in the morning, laying down, because the body never lies. And you're going to see firsthand that what you're doing is not working for you. Last question from Scott. No, do you not have to apologize?
Nope.
But is this metabolic typing? No, this is something we created based on the influence of many different people, like Ray Peat, Constance Martin, cellular energy production, biochemistry, and just how the body works. But there's many people that have influenced Hans Selye. So we kind of pulled it together to create our own approach in what we do. But it has no relation to metabolic typing. So once again, guys, we appreciate everyone tuning in. We didn't get to all our notes, but I think we really touched upon our thoughts. Yeah. When you agree? Yeah. We had some great questions. Don't forget, we are here every single Thursday at 2:30 p.m. Pacific Coast time. If you can't make it, you can always watch the playback on our page. And there may be an exception for next week, but we will. Yeah, we're not going to be here next week, but we'll be here the week after. If you want to watch any of all the videos, you can click the video link on the left side of our Facebook page. You can check out our YouTube page as we upload every single video to our YouTube page, which is East West Healing. And don't forget to download our Restoration Thyroid audio series and sign up for your free consult and share the video. Thanks, guys. Peace. Have a great one.